Now that you guys know that you have FC Dallas coming to town, what are you expecting from that squad?
We were expecting a really hard-fought match, really intense match, whether it was going to be, Vancouver or Dallas. Dallas is, a little bit of bad blood between the two teams over the time that we played against each other. They're kind of the, what LA Galaxy was to us. We couldn't beat them in the playoffs, and Dallas, we knocked them out last year, so we know that they have the same mindset we had going into LA. Against us. So they want to set the record straight. They're probably a little bit bitter from doing so well this year and not winning the Supporters Shield. So, they definitely want to come out flying. They got fresh legs. So it's going to be, really hard fought. But, I think it's a really good thing that we have a home game instead of playing away.
As a player, how much is revenge a motivator?
Yeah, it's personal to every player. It's different to every player, especially when you have a revolving door of players. Luckily, we keep most of our players around here, and so does Dallas. So it's a lot of the same players that were in the games last year. They're going to be playing against each other this year. So that's why I say I think it's going to be a little bit more intense, just because, the memories are fresh in your mind. We played good games against them this year, but they're a really good team, really fast team. Can counterattack, can pass, they can do it all. It just depends, what team shows up.
You bring up their speed. How challenging, even more so, is that for you guys, given this quick turnaround of games?
Yeah, it's always tough to play, 3 games in a week or 4 games in how many days, it's tough, but that's playoff soccer, and that's, what it is, playing at home. That's why it's so important to play that game at home and get the, our 12th man behind us and, 40,000, 50,000 people, however many are going to be there, get them behind us and give us that little piece of energy that we probably wouldn't have had we play in Dallas. So it'd be good to play this home game first, and, I think the goal is to, try and score a few goals, but most importantly, keep them to 0, because away goals is what got us last year.
And you're a guy that's played a number of roles in his career. Just how easy Brad makes it look to bounce from position to position, sort of underrate just how difficult it is to just sort of adjust on the fly the way that he does?
That's why he's the captain. People, he's a talkative leader. He leads by example off the field and on the field. But that's why he is who he is, and why we respect him so much on this team when we look to him, because he can play any position that we put him in. You put him up top, you might have more goals than me. So it just doesn't make sense for this guy. He's just a very smart player. He knows how to play within his position. He knows not to take unnecessary risks, and that's why Ziggy, I think, is so comfortable putting him back there, because he knows that no matter what, when the pressure gets tough, he's not going to buckle, which is why we look to him.
Did you see the crazy penalty shootout between Portland and Kansas City?
Never seen anything like that. I think the funniest thing I saw was that video of that keeper getting hit in the face a bunch of times. They put him in the chair. The YouTube video, you guys seen that? Oh, you guys gotta watch it. It's hilarious. But it was just like that. I couldn't believe it. Everybody says it was the best PK shootout in MLS history. I think it was the most intense, but I think it was the worst PK shootout. They kept missing, and you could see the nerves. That's what playoff soccer does. And there's a lot of young players taking PKs there, and that's what you get sometimes, unfortunately, players that haven't been in those situations. I think, in the game the other day, it might have been O'Neal Fisher going in a regular season game, but instead you put Zach Scott in because he's played in those positions before. He's played those games against LA. He knows you're going to battle. He's good in the air. It's what you need. And, I just think it was mind-blowing. It was a crazy game. But, I think Portland, are the deserved winners. Every team 1 through 4 made the playoffs, like the stats showed. So it's going to be a great little playoff, I think.